Innards by Magogodi oaMphela Makhene is a book that narrates the everyday lives of Soweto residents from the early years of apartheid to its ending and beyond. The characters in the book try to navigate through the shadows of the recent past alongside the uncertain opportunities of the promised land. This morning we review this book and we're joined virtually by the author Magogodi Makhene. Magogodi, a very good morning to you. A warm welcome to Morning Live. I mean, tell us a little bit about your story, Innards, and what is the inspiration behind the book?
Good morning. It's wonderful being here with you, and thank you for the question. You know, I'm very much inspired by my beautiful hometown and country. I'm from Soweto. For me, Innards is a love story to this dynamic, thriving, brilliant place that gave birth to me and so much of what is forward thinking about South Africa, right? We think about Soweto as the urban heartbeat of South Africa overall, but I always explain, you know, I live in the United States and in South Africa, so I split my time. And when I'm here, I explain to folks that Soweto is our Harlem, and it is this global epicenter throughout the world. People look to us for culture. And in writing this book, I wanted to celebrate how we understand ourselves outside of the white gaze.
Speak to us about the different themes that you explore in this book, you know, beauty, ugliness, rage. Tell us a little bit about how you unpack these in the book.
The book covers quite a few characters and it travels a huge, expansive timescape, right? So we're talking about before apartheid existed. So much of the world imagines South Africa, and unfortunately, I think they reduce us just to the experience of South Africa. And what I wanted to do in this book is, yes, speak about the pain that we went through, but also look at, all of the vibrancy that is our full South Africanness. If you know anything about us, we're extremely funny. That's part of how I know we got through the darkest days of apartheid. So the book tries to capture some of that humor. The book also very much is in dialogue with our sense of self, our sense of community, which is such a strong component of what it means, at least to me, to be a South African.
And one of the characters there, is the fake, PhD, ex-freedom fighter. How did you come up with these characters and their significance in the book?
Libo, the characters are very deeply researched as well as based on fiction. So I pulled from history. I looked very closely at what is happening on the ground right now. As you very well know, there has been quite a few people who are in positions of leadership, positions of power, who it's come out, they're not necessarily who we thought that they were, right? And I wanted to tackle that on the page and explore it through somebody who is not only duplicitous to the outside world, but honestly, somebody who isn't telling the full story of who he is to himself. And for me, that's important because I think so much of our power as South Africans is how we understand ourselves. We freed ourselves from this ugly thing called apartheid. And we are facing so many challenges, as every other country does. To me, the only way we're able to move forward from those challenges is once we begin telling the full story to ourselves and just being honest, like, where is it that we have made mistakes? Where is it that we have thrived and been great? And how do we stay true and stay in the cause for ourselves that looks like the South Africa we believe in?
I want to discuss how the story, peels back the curtain and allows, the readers to feel like insiders, to feel part of that story.
Yes, one of the ways I was really excited to do this and enjoyed doing it is through the use of language. So, of course, the book is written in English, but it's extremely important to me to recognize the English that is in Innards and the English that we use in South Africa. Honestly, this is a decolonized version of English, right? We have to start being honest with the ways in which English came to our shores through colonization. It's a colonial project. But the way that we have embodied it is something of a liberation project in and of itself. And I wanted, through the stories, when I'm talking about innards, I wanted somebody like yourself. I know you're also from Soweto. I wanted you to be able to be inside the story in a way that somebody who is, a casual American reader who might be based in Washington, D.C., they might not understand all those nuances, all of those layers. And that is, again, we're peeling back these layers of what does it mean to be Black and what does it mean to be in the innermost embodiment of that Blackness outside the white gaze.
I'm curious about what would be the most difficult part of writing this book. What would you say that was?
Oh man, there was a lot. This book took a lot out of me in the best possible, honestly. Listen, you know this very well. Our history is not easy. Spending years researching and living with these characters demanded a certain kind of resilience and a certain fortitude to the truth of who I know us to be. I wanted to tell a story that celebrated the depth of our humanity, not just the parts that are dark. And to be honest about all of it also required sitting with the dark. What we've been through, it does deserve it deserves pause and it deserves humility because it explores some of the darkest parts of what it means to be a human being. So facing that, being honest about it, sitting with that, it took something out of me for sure.
And I mean, one reviewer says, Laura Worrell from the New York Times says, this book is a gut punch of a collection. Is it something, does it summarize sort of what you were trying to do with this book? And how best would you describe when you started this process and how it ended up, what it became?
I have to say I was so pleased to get that review from the New York Times. A gut punch is something that I think is celebratory of what the book is about because it doesn't flinch. There is no place where I wanted to look away. We're so often, when we face things that are difficult, it's easy for us to kind of steer off the intensity of what is required to face it full on. And when I read that review and this idea that it's a gut punch, I thought, yeah, that's good and that's accurate. And we don't want to shy away from the fullness of who we are, what we've been through, and what we're moving through currently. And when you ask about how did the book begin and where is it now, obviously, when you're writing, it's a very private experience. And the work right now of seeing Innards out in the world and seeing how it's received in the world beyond South Africa, for me, it's extremely gratifying. And it's also very much what I hope, I hope that people who read it get a sense of this place that formed me and this place that I love so deeply, right? Not just Soweto, but South Africa in totality, that folks take away from the book. Wow, South Africa is extremely complicated, but geez, what a rich and rewarding place. I hope that you sit with the characters in Innards and you take away something that's rewarding to your own humanity.
All right, Magogodi, thank you so much for staying up for us. Congratulations again on the book. That was author Magogodi oaMphela Makhene speaking to us about her book titled Innards.